Hi everyone. Let's learn about the topic of file system structure today. So what is the meaning of, we know that file system consists of two things. One is it stores the files, the actual files which contains the data, as well as it maintains the directory structure. So this file system resides permanently on the secondary storage devices. And we know that secondary storage is designed to hold a large amount of data permanently. So in this secondary storage devices, we know that disks are actually used to maintain the file system. Disks are the ones which are used to maintain the file system, and they constitute the major portion of our secondary memory. By disk, what do we mean by disk is it can be a hard drive, it can be an optical disk, it can be a floppy disk, anything of that sort. So such sort of storage devices are used for secondary storage devices are used for maintaining our file system, and this is where bulk of our secondary memory is going to reside. So why are we using disks for secondary memory, and what is the reason for using disks for maintaining our file system? Is there are two reasons for using disks as the main storage device for storing our file system, or two reasons for using disks for our secondary memory. So first reason is this can be easily rewritten. So you can just read a block from the disk, you can modify the block, and you can write it back into the same place. So reading, updating, and writing it back can be easily done. That is one of the reasons. The second reason is you can directly access any block of information from the disk, right? Disks consists of several blocks. You can imagine the disk model of a file. So randomly you can access any block, and you can access the information present in that block. So whether you want to access it sequentially or you want to access it randomly, both are possible. And so it only involves moving the read write heads and getting the desired block. So these are the two reasons why we prefer disks for maintaining our file system. One is disks can be easily rewritten, and the second reason is any block of information present in the disk can be easily accessed. And another thing which you have to remember is we know that disks are used to maintain the file system, and input output has to take place between the memory and the disk, because we have to read the files into memory whenever the data is required. So this data transfer or the input output transfer between the memory and the disk takes place in terms of blocks. And so before going into our layered design of the file system, just try to recall what is a file system. File system is nothing but file system basically provides a mechanism for organization and retrieval of the data stored on the disks. Okay, without a file system, proper organization will not happen, and you cannot easily retrieve the data. So file system is required for maintaining, for organizing, and for retrieving the data present on the disk. So this file system is actually organized into several levels. Okay, there is file systems. In order to make the file systems easy to store and locate the data present in the files, file systems are organized into several levels, and so that we are going to learn in this topic. So this is the different types of levels in our file system. You can see that the file system itself is organized into several levels, and one important thing which you have to remember in this layered design of the file system is each layer uses the features of the lower levels to create new features which can be used by the higher levels. Okay, this is called as uh, this architecture which you see on the screen is called as the layered design of the file system. And the thing which you have to remember is each layer consists of some features which can be used by its higher level layers. Okay, each level makes use of the features of the lower levels, and it creates new features which can be used by its higher levels. Okay, so this layered file system is used as an interface between the application programs and the devices. So there are four main components in our layered file system: logical files, logical file system, file organization module, basic file system, and input output control. So let's start one by one from the bottommost level. Okay, at the bottommost level we have the input output control. So this input output control, what does it consist of? This input output control basically consists of device drivers and interrupt handlers. device drivers and interrupt handlers. What they will do, they will transfer the information between the main memory and the disk system. Just try to visualize what I'm trying to say. Data transfer has to take place between the main memory and the secondary memory, and secondary memory is implemented through disks. So this input output control level, this level consists of device drivers and interrupt handlers, which will transfer the information between the main memory and the disk. So input output control consists of device drivers. So that device drivers will receive basic commands, high level commands. That high level commands may look like retrieve block number 64. So when it receives such high level commands, the device driver will convert it into low level hardware specific instructions, which can be understood by the device controller. Okay, this input output control level consists of device drivers. This device drivers will be interacting with something called device controllers, and this device controllers, so what the device driver will do is it will convert the high level commands which it receives from the basic file system, and it will convert it into low level hardware specific instructions, which can be used by the device controller. So what the device driver specifically do is it will write specific bit patterns to specific locations in the device controller's memory. Bit patterns are written by the device driver into specific locations in the device controller's memory, so that basically the device driver is trying to tell the device controller about which location it has to access on the device and what action it has to take. So to inform the device controller about what location has to be accessed on the device and what action it has to take after accessing that location, all that information is told by the device driver to the device controller by writing specific bit patterns. So that is about the input output control level. So input output control level, this layer consists of basically device drivers which will be interacting with device controllers. So device drivers will write specific bit patterns in the memory of the device controller, and it will inform the device controller about which location it has to access in the device and what action it has to take on that particular location. So the next level is your basic file system. Above the level of input output control, we have the basic file system. As I told you before, this basic file system will issue generic commands to the input output control level. What do I mean by generic commands? Read block number 15, read block number 175, read disk number 124. That type of commands are called as generic commands. So these are commands given by the basic file system to the device driver to read and write the physical blocks on the disk. So basic file system will issue the commands to read the blocks from the disk or to write the blocks onto the disk. And we know that every physical block which is residing on the secondary storage device is identified by its disk address. Okay, we may have disk addresses which will usually consist of the drive number, cylinder number, track number, and sector number. So your disk address may look like drive number 5, cylinder number 75, track number 1, sector number 50. So each block will be identified by its numeric disk address, but then basic file system will only issue the commands which will look like, it will just give the block number, the actual address will be converted by, the actual logical address will be converted to physical address of the block by the operating system. So that is the function of the basic file system. Basic file system will issue generic commands to the device driver to read and write the physical data blocks on the disk. Above the level of the basic file system, we have the file organization module. So what is this file organization module? This file organization module, as the name implies, it knows all about the files. It knows the logical blocks, block addresses, as well as it knows the physical block addresses. So what does it know? It knows the logical addresses, it knows the physical addresses. So then its main operation will be doing the task of translation. The file organization module translates the logical block addresses to physical block addresses so that the data can be accessed. Okay, the translation of the logical block addresses given by the operating system into physical block addresses is being done by the file organization module. Another important task done by the file organization module is free space management. This file organization module also has something called as free space manager. What does the free space manager do? In the disk, you will be allocating the different blocks on the disk to the files, right? So when blocks become free, when you delete a file, the blocks are going to become free. So this file organization module contains the free space manager, which will keep track of all those unallocated blocks. And then whenever blocks becomes free, then those blocks are given to the file organization module whenever it requests it. Whenever it requests it. So that is about file organization module. File organization module basically performs two functions. One is translation and the other one is free space management. Translation is nothing but translation of the whenever the user tries to access the block of file on the disk, he is not going to give the actual disk block address. He will give the logical block address. So that logical block address, disk block number, is converted to the actual physical disk block address by the file organization module. That is called translation. And then it also contains the free space manager. The free space manager will keep track of all the free disk blocks, unallocated disk blocks, and it will inform it to the file organization module whenever requested. Above this level, the next layer is the logical file system. So we saw about the lowermost level, which is input-output control. We learned that input-output control consists of device drivers and interrupt handlers. Above this level, we have the basic file system. This will actually issue commands to the, it will issue generic commands to the device driver to do the actual task of reading and writing. Above this, we have the file organization module. This will do two tasks. One is translation of the logical block addresses to the physical block addresses, and the other one is free space management. Above this, we have the logical file system. Now, this logical file system will maintain the metadata information. What do I mean by metadata information? Everything other than the data of the files. Files will store data, right? Other than the data, everything else is called as metadata. So this logical file system will maintain the metadata information about the files. What does that mean? It manages the directory structure. The logical file system. So previously I told you file system means it consists of two parts. One is the actual files and the other one is the directory structure. That directory structure is maintained by the logical file system. And how does it maintain the directory structure? For that, it maintains something called as the file control block. Okay, the logical file system manages the directory structure by maintaining something called as the file control block. We call it as FCB. So what does this file control block contain? It will contain information about the ownership of the file, file identifier, file access permissions, what is the location of the file contents on the disk. All that information will be maintained by the file control block. And it also maintains the file protection information. Already we have seen that file protection information is nothing but the read, write and execute permissions of the file. Which user has what type of permissions on the file that is implemented by file protection. That information, that maintaining of those bits, all that, the maintaining of the access control list, everything is also maintained by the logical file system. So that is all about the layered design of the file system. So we saw that, to summarize, we saw that there are 4 different levels in the layered file system, which basically consists of, starting from the lowermost, it consists of input-output control, basic file system, file organization module, and the logical file system. Now, why are we organizing the file system into several levels like this? Is because it will reduce the duplication of code. Say, for example, you might have some code in the input-output control level. You might have some code in the basic file system. This can be utilized by multiple file systems. In any typical operating system, it may support more than one file system. In that case, the code can be used by multiple file systems. So, and it allows and it provides for duplication of the code will be reduced. That is why we are having so many levels in the file system. And real-time example is already we have seen that many operating systems support more than one file systems. Example is Unix supports Unix file system and fast file system. Windows series of operating systems support fat allocation table. Windows NTFS, it also supports the file system formats of CD-ROM, DVD and floppy disks. Apart from this, we have a lot of new file systems coming, like you have the Fuse file system, you have the Google file system. all such new file systems keep arriving day by day. Okay, so that is about real time implementations of file systems, some file systems which are being used by contemporary operating systems. So if I have to tell you a real time example of the difference between a device controller and device driver, mostly students get confused about what actually is device controller and device driver. So device controller is basically an electronic component which is inside the computer, which is responsible for specific type of device. We know that there is one device controller responsible for every type of device. When you plug in your device to the through the socket of your computer system and connect it with the computer system, the device controller will be connected to the socket, and that acts as the intermediary between the device and the operating system. So device controller is basically an electronic component. And what is the meaning of device driver? Device driver is just a code. It is just a low-level program which is written by hardware manufacturers, and it acts as the interface between the device controller and the operating system. So that is all about the file system structure. We'll now move on to the next topic of directory implementation. Okay, so previously I told you file system means it consists of two distinct parts. One is files. Files are used to store a collection of related information which is created by the owner of the file. And then the second information maintained in the file system is your directory. Now, what is the meaning of this directory? Directory is going to store information about the files in the file system. That means it contains the file name, file identifier, file location, file access permissions, etc. So here, this topic of directory implementation deals with what algorithm is going to be used by the OS for organizing and managing that directory structure. Directory structure is going to store information about the files. How are we going to manage that information stored in the directory structure, and how is the OS going to organize the information in the directory structure? That is called directory implementation. Directory implementation basically deals with algorithms which is maintained by the OS to manage and organize the information in the directory structure. And there are basically two methods for implementing the directory. First method is by using a linear list, and the second method is by using a hash table. Okay, so first let's see about the first method of using linear list. As the name implies, what is linear list? Linear list directories has to store the information about the files. That is, it will store the file names, and it will also store pointers to the actual location of the data blocks of that file. So how are we going to maintain it as a linear list? In a linear list, as the name implies, linear list means there is a linear list of file names, and each file name will have pointers pointing to the actual data blocks of the file. Okay, imagine it like a linear sequence where you have a list of file names, and each file name will have pointer pointing to the actual data blocks of the file. Okay, that is very simple implementation, very simple to implement, but it is actually very time consuming to execute. Why is that very time consuming to execute? Is, let's say, just try to visualize what I'm trying to say. If you want to create a new file in a linear list, what you have to, in a linear list implementation of a directory, what you have to do is you have to search the directory structure to ensure that there is no such file already existing with that same name. Otherwise, it will be overwritten. Okay, so if you have to create a new file, you have to first search the directory that such a file of that name doesn't exist already. That is, so creation is going to be time consuming. If you want to delete a file, again you have to search the directory structure which is implemented as a linear list, and you may have to search the entire linear list sometimes, and then you have to, once you get the file name, you have to release the space which has been allocated to the file. Okay, so deletion, creation, everything is going to be very time consuming. And then another problem is once you delete the file, how to reuse that space which has been allocated previously. You have got some free space now after you delete the file entry. So how to reuse that directory entry? So one way to identify which directory entries have become free is just like we had valid, invalid bit in paging, we can make use of used, unused bit here. If that directory entry is used for a file, then used bit will be set. If it is not used, then unused bit will be set. So that is one way to keep track of free entries in the directory. The other way is we can maintain a separate list. OS can maintain a separate list of free directory entries, and whenever one directory entry becomes free, it can be attached to the list of free directory entries. That is another way to keep track of all the directory entries which have become free. But then the most difficult part here is most disadvantageous part of linear list implementation of a directory is the searching operation. Searching a linear list of directory entries is going to be very time consuming. That is the time complexity. We know that the time complexity of linear search is big O of n. Even in the average case also it is big O of n. What do I mean by big O of n? Even in the average case, you have to search through all the n elements to find your the file name, to find the particular file name which you are searching for. Okay, so that is going to be, if you have to access the directory structure frequently, then that access time is going to be too large. So in order to reduce the access time, what operating systems sometimes do is they maintain something called as a software cache. This software cache will store the frequently used directory informations will be stored in the software cache. So instead of accessing the linear list every time when a file name has to be searched, this software cache will be used as intermediate. So if there is any frequently used directory information, it will be accessed from the cache instead of accessing the linear list. So it will reduce the time needed to access the information from the linear list. So that is about linear list implementation of your directory. Linear list means you will have just a list of file names along with pointers to the actual data blocks. And as expected, it consumes more time for creation, deletion, as well as keeping, as well as for searching a file name inside the linear list. The second type of implementation is called as hash table implementation. We all know that whenever we implement any type of algorithm, if searching is going to take a large amount of time for you, we make use of the hashing concept. We saw that when we learned about memory management previously. So here in this, so when we made use of linear list to store the directory entries, that is going to, we saw that that's going to take big O of n time. That means to search a file name, we have to search the entire linear list. Where if n is the number of elements in your linear list, you may have to search through n elements to find the file name which you are searching for. That's what I mean by big O of n. But when we use hashing technique, always hashing technique, the time complexity with the hash table is just big O of 1. That means just with one comparison, hash table will be able to find the location of your file name. Okay, because simultaneously given a hash value, given a file name, it simultaneously checks against all the entries in the hash table. So just with only one comparison, it will be able to locate the file name. So that's why always when we make use of the hashing data structure, the searching operation takes place in a constant computation time. So that's why here also the main problem which we had in linear list implementation is the search time was big O of n. That is, we have to search through all the file names, all the n file names on the linear list to get the file in the worst case or in the average case. So in hash table data structure, how it is actually implemented is, as usual, there will be a hash function in the hashing technique, right? So here we use a hash function, and that hash function is applied on the file name, and a hash value is produced. Hash function is applied on the file name. So here also one important thing which you have to remember is, even in the hash table implementation, we maintain a linear list also. Okay, we maintain a linear list which contains the file names as well as pointers to the actual data blocks on the disk. File names is there, pointers to the actual data blocks, that is also there. Plus, along with that, to fasten the search time, to expedite the search time, we use the hash table data structure. So here, the hash function is applied on the file name and the hash function is produced, hash value is produced. That hash value is entered into the hash table. Okay, and this hash value contains a pointer pointing to the file name on the linear list, and that file name in turn will contain pointer to the actual data block on the disk. Just try to visualize. Here we are maintaining linear list which contains file names as well as pointers to the actual data blocks on the disk. plus before the linear list, we also maintain a hash table. This hash table will contain hash values. How are the hash values produced? These hash values are produced by applying the hash function on the file name. Okay. Hash function is applied on the file name and the hash value is produced. And that hash value will contain pointer to the actual file name. So we need not search through the linear list of, we need not search through the entire linear list. By the hash value is going to contain pointer straight to the actual file location, the location of the file on the disk. So searching time is considerably reduced here. So that is your advantage of using hash table. But the disadvantage here is, obviously when we use hashing wherever, in whichever concept you apply it, it will lead to collisions. What is the meaning of collisions? When two file names, we are going to apply the hash function on the file name. So there is no guarantee that two file names will not produce the same hash value. Okay, so that is called collision. When two file names produce the same hash value, then where will I store it in the hash table? Okay, when two file names produce the same hash value, that problem is called as collision. So how are we going to avoid collision is, that is one of the problem. And the other problem is the hash table is fixed size. Let's say if the size of my hash table is 64, I can store 64 hash values of 64 file names. Let's say then if a 65th file name comes, where will I store? I have to increase the size of the hash table. Now to increase the size of the hash table, I have to increase the size of the hash table from 64 to 128. And so that is another difficulty in your hash table implementation. So to avoid both these difficulties, we can make use of chained overflow method. We have collision. Collision is nothing but two different file names. When a hash function is applied on the two different file names, they too will produce the same hash value. But I have only one location in my hash table. So where will I store these two where will I store these two file name entries? So that to solve that, we make use of the chained overflow method. And in this chained overflow method, what we do is, instead of storing one individual value in the hash table, each hashed entry will maintain a linked list. Okay, each hash entry will maintain a linked list. We know that linked list means it contains a node with a pointer to next node. So in this chained overflow method, there will be a linked list. So whenever more than one file name produces the same hash value, that new entry will be added to the linked list. Okay. When you have one file name, it produces a hash value, enter it into the hash table. When you have another file name, you apply the hash function and it produces a hash value. And if it is same hash value, that is called collision. In that case, add that new entry to the linked list. So this method is called as chained overflow method. So the disadvantage of this chained overflow method is, again, now if you have to search through a file name in the hash table in this chained overflow method using linked list, we have to search through the entire linked list of colliding table entries. So that is going to be little more time than our previous hashing method. But then it is going to be less time compared to searching the entire linear list for the file names. Okay, instead of searching the entire linear list, which is going to take big O of n time, we are going to just search one single linked list, which is going to store just a small set of file names which are having collision. Okay, so that is all about the implementation of hash table. So our next topic is about the different types of allocation methods. So what do I mean by allocation methods is that, so we are going to reserve space for the files on the disk. So how is the operating system going to allocate space to the files on the disk such that the disk space has to be utilized effectively, and it should also be possible to retrieve the files quickly. So you have to utilize the disk space effectively. That means there should not be any problems of fragmentation or any storage allocation problem. Such a sort of problems should not be there. As well as if you have to retrieve a file from the disk, it should be quick and searching should be faster. So allocation methods deals with how to allocate space to the files on the disk such that disk space is utilized effectively and it should be faster to locate and access the files on the disk. There are basically three types of allocation methods, namely contiguous allocation, linked allocation, and indexed allocation. We'll see about these three types of allocation methods in the next lecture.